Hello and welcome to Alchemist Swim. I'm Alchemist Jen. Hope you're having a good day. Cheers to you. Today's whim of the day is to fluff some fiber. So I have dyed a bunch of fiber, and one of them is this Ready Goodness. Ready Goodness, it's a name that I'm calling it. It is a red color that kind of split it a little bit into the orange, but I think it looks like a flame, so I think it'll work out pretty well. So I'm just pulling it apart. So when it is washed, it's squeezed to get the bulk of the water out, and then the fibers like to stay in that formation. So fluffing it gives it a little bit of loft again, but it also takes some stress off the fibers. So it makes it nice and soft and ready to be used. So happy fibers. Happy fibers. And this is going to be felted, so that loft is going to be nice and make it easier for it to be joined together through stabbing. Yes, truly, truly. Through stabbing. That is a thing. It is reality for this awesome fiber. So I have a whole rainbow. This is just the red. So super fun for sure. Alright, so it's really soft, and so I've discovered something in my fiber processing this time. I have traditionally laid it flat, just a nice little screens on top of a drying rack, and then it took a while to dry, but then also that gravity impacted the fluffiness of the fiber, and it made it more work for me to open up the fibers. So also took no longer, so I tried to speed up my process and fluff it early, and then it was wet a little bit, and then just made the fluffing harder, so more complex and complicated. So I found out that through hanging the fibers like so, the water was able to move down the fibers, which also gave some loft back to them. So because of the evacuation of the water from those areas, they tend to relax a little bit more, become less stressed in general, and fluff out a bit. So that was encouraging, because I thought I could only get that loftiness for this partial. I'm not really having to do too much work on this fluff, which is nice. But I thought I could only get the loftiness through having like a spin dryer. So I am relieved. And I've seen other people drying by hanging fibers, but I hadn't tried it yet, so I wasn't aware of the nuances there. So yay for learning new things. Super exciting. And yeah, so it's really nice to spin up some fibers, to dye up some fiber. I'm thinking about spinning, so I said it. So yeah, so I'm feeling more confident in my fiber foray of the dye and the spinning and the teaching and the information. So yay, I'll take it, right? Every little bit counts and everything adds up. So fluffing away, and then I'll wind it up for you so you can see how the colors interact. This did split a lot more than I'd hoped. You never know until you do it how the fibers are going to go. So this one was cayenne red, which definitely has a lot more orange in it. You find that when you have colors that are mixed with other colors instead of being primary, they have different heat sensitivities, and then they'll split due to when certain colors want to connect with the fibers based off of their heat timing on their, I guess, their prime connectivity temperature conditions, maybe I want to say. So it really is fascinating. It's full on chemistry, and you never know. You never know what you're going to get. I've used this cayenne very successfully in other dyes and not had it split, but it was also in the form of yarn, and so the fibers are spun, so that of course gives you a different reaction than just having the free flowing fibers. So it's just fascinating to see how different textures, different fibers, different conditions will set up different parameters for how things happen and are executed and how they come to be in the end. So it's really quite fascinating. I love it. I think it's beautiful. Frustrating when you have expectations and you don't get them, I think, but in general I try not to have expectations, because then you're not let down by things, but then you can celebrate what did happen much easier than if you feel like it didn't go in the way that you had hoped or anticipated. Much more flexible mindset, and I don't know, allows a lot less stress. So when tasked with, for instance, dyeing something for somebody else and to achieve a color, I find I take a bit of stress on that, just trying to make sure that I'm able to give what is expected by somebody else. And that is another thing altogether, having and anticipating expectations from somebody else, and trying to deliver to those expectations. So it's just fascinating. And then all that just comes back to, I guess, a bit of a chemistry thing there too, you know, being able to produce something for somebody else that they want versus getting something that they weren't looking for or don't want. So it's all just fascinating. Fascinating. Alright. One fluffed. One fluffing fluff. Alright, let's see how it rolls up. So overall feel it's quite an orangey red. So the red I had before was a darker one, so I was requested to do a lighter one, more bright. So it's definitely brighter. So, and then this one ended up being dark in certain areas just because of where it split. So you never know what you're going to get. Even with something that I had tested and done on different, like I said, different yarns and things, hadn't split like this. So fascinating. And then when I did the dyeing portion of it, I had citric acid that had been used to soak the fibers as a pre-soak in the pans, and I used rectangular pans. And I took some of the citric acid water to add to my dye, which I do with my yarn. I just try to reuse as much water as possible and not waste things if I can't. Plus it's in the fibers anyway, so it's not like it needs to be fresh water. And everyone's got different results or different methods, but my method is just to kind of reuse it. And so I took a measuring cup and scooped out some of that water, still had the fiber in the pan, and then used tongs to move around the dye water that was now being created to, so I didn't want to agitate the fiber too much, I didn't want to move it around too much to upsetted. I wanted it to remain open as possible to receiving the dye. So I didn't want to like squish it. Though water does in general help it open up because the molecules run between the fibers. So that's kind of a fascinating thing. So even through washing it, it fluffs. So it's just awesome. It's like the fibers themselves just kind of keep the water at bay, but it allows it to sit around it. So fun stuff, fun stuff. Alright, we're getting through the second one here. And so I think this will work for the project. It's a felted rainbows. So I think it'll work. I'm hoping so. Hoping it's red enough. Just nervous. I felt like it was redder before it dried too, so I'm just paranoid. And I also want people to get what they are expecting, I guess. Fascinating. Alright. And this is our fiber process for this weekend. I don't know, it's whatever day it is for you, but using weekend or time limiters. I don't know. It was an interesting choice because it's not a weekend day right now. So I've got to fluff out some more fiber. So I've taken pictures of the first batch that I did. It was all blues, and purple, indigo, and green. So I took pictures of that, posted it on IG, and then I will do these. I'll fluff these out and then post them as well. So get that response right away, but also just want to be getting it done on time because the event's this weekend. See, I used weekend correctly there. On an actual weekend. Fluff, fluff, fluff. If I do a fluff song, so make it more interesting. My fluff song, I just mean sing fluff, fluff, fluff the whole song. I think that is appropriate and totally okay. And the right kind of weird for me, so why not? Why not, indeed. Alright, got really quiet there. It's not good when you're on a video. Oh well. Oh well. I am still fluffing. I'm in the fluff zone. That's where I am right now. Fluff zone. Fluff central. Alright. And I'll show you this goodness. So it does take a little bit to go through a 4-ounce braid and to fluff it out. I'm lost in my thoughts here because I'm examining the dye split on this one. And there's not time to over dye it. But I think overall it'll feel like it hits the tones that it needs to in the rainbow. And the orange turned out well, so I think that this will still look red where it needs to give that delineation. Need for big words. I like vocabulary, it's fun. And when I hook them into braids, I think you'll be able to see a little bit more of the color consistencies too. So it's just so soft. So soft. Fluffing makes a difference. I just love it. It's so beautiful. Alright, so that's where we are today. The one of the day has been fluffing some fiber, being critical about my work, and hoping that the person who's getting it will enjoy the color and will be happy with it. So, yay! I'm sure she will be, but it's just kind of, it's my own process. I'm just critical of my work that way. Something I need to do better on, but I also just, as I'm trying to work through some perfectionism and balancing other people's expectations with my own actual expectations and not anticipating what other people think or feel about what I do or don't do. So it's just like one of those growth opportunities for me. So me being totally vulnerable. Thanks for being here. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on. Thanks for listening to me ramble through my thought process. And in that point too, just processing auditorily, if I want to say that's a correct way to phrase it or not. I'm just kind of running with it. I think it sounds good. So we'll see where the whim of the day is tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. Have a good one.